and we'll get started. So this is transitioning into UX perspectives from, we have 2 designers today and 1 recruiter. We'll get to hear their information and how they came to be where they are, and then also recommendations for how you to get where you want to be. Starting off, hi, I am Tori Schwanner. I am the moderator for today. I'll be asking all of the questions, and I'm currently a UX designer at Clever. Let's see, first off, we have Gaia Boyd, who's a UX designer at Oracle. We have Grant Baker, a UX designer at Paycom, and then Kenzy Kinnaird, a digital and creative recruiter at TEKsystems. So first of all, I just want to dive in and basically, oh yeah, let's clap, oh yeah. Thank you, panelists, for being here. I'm really excited. I'll dive in and let's just hear your 60-second background story from everyone.
Okay. So again, my name is Gaia Boyd, and I am a user experience designer with NetSuite Oracle. And let's see, I went to college in North Carolina, and I majored in sociology. And I went to a smaller school, so I got the opportunity to do a lot of ethnographic research while I was studying there. I was also interested in health, so I took a bunch of science and pre-med classes. After college, I stayed in Asheville because it was the recession and just ran a small business doing massage. Knew I didn't want to do that forever, so started looking into graduate programs. And the terribleness of graduate school websites was a big inspiration to find my way into UX. Also running a business and learning how pivotal technology can be in the success of a business and the happiness of customers was a big inspiration. So I moved back here and worked my way into a job doing user experience design.
I'm Grant Baker, and I started out Northwestern College, not the one you've heard of. Majored in communication studies, also a small school. Got to do a lot of things. It's not where I kind of initially started out. I actually wanted to design airplanes for a living, but through a course of various events, found myself in kind of like this graphic design space and went down to Arizona and got a job down there doing web design and graphic design. And after it was a recession again, kind of hit there, and the writing was on the wall, so found another position at Mutual of Omaha, where I was for the past 10 years as a web designer, and then later on as a UX designer. And now I'm at Paycom, so very excited about that. Again, my views reflect mine and mine alone, not Paycom's. Should probably say that. Make some people happy. But I'm really glad to be here today and hope that can be helpful.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Kenzy Kinnaird. I am a digital and creative recruiter with TEKsystems. And I'm someone that likes to look at my notes, so no judgment, please. If you don't know what TEKsystems is, we are a IT services and staffing company nationwide. So we can operate as a full service agency as well as helping with individual staffing. Me specifically, I focus more on the digital and creative side, like I said, but we do service the full IT gamut. Though I am not a UX designer, I do talk to them and work with them every single day. So I can help with transitioning into UX by keeping you up to date with market and insight and how to land that job and get over that hump. Really helping with interview prep, portfolio reviews, mock interviews, everything to get you prepared to make that transition and walk into that interview and be successful.
So, Kenzy, how did you get into the creative recruiter side of things?
Yeah, so I've been with tech for 2 years now. For the first year and a half, I was more focused on the development side of the house, so working with full stack developers here locally. I did really enjoy that. My partner, Alex Miller, I'm sure some of you guys know her. She actually runs our digital and creative services for Oklahoma City and Northwest Arkansas. There was an opening on her team. I've always been intrigued with the creative side of things, and definitely wanted to build more of a network of creatives and designers in the market. So that's just kind of how I got involved with it.
Cool. Okay, so this is for Gaia and Grant. How did you guys actually transition? I sense a theme from you guys. You guys, majored in things that were not graphic design, human-computer interaction, UX, UI, any of those things. So literally, how did you guys transition? I know it's a process, and that's our main topic for today.
Well, for me, it was South by Southwest 2012. I was down there, and a friend that I went down there with really encouraged me to go hear this guy, Alan Cooper, the godfather of Visual Basic, to go talk, right? And I was like, okay, whatever. He was more developer-y than me, but I was like, I'll do it for him. It's an evening session. So we went, and I was just struck by everything this guy said was what I thought web design always should be. And I remember going back and writing like a blog post and just talking about like, oh my goodness, everything that I've always kind of wondered about, and this guy's taken it to, the nth degree. And so the next year, his company, Cooper, now they're part of Design It, but it's another story. They had a UX boot camp, and I went there with a friend of mine, another friend of mine, and really kind of got energized for what UX design can be and could be, and how the process works, and the work and the rigor that goes into it. And it felt really solid. Like, this is something you can build design on. This is something you can build decisions on. This is something that you can solve problems with. So took that back to the company, and just gradually, like you do at big companies, you just have to kind of continually grind away and win champions to see things from your point of view. And once we kind of did that, we began a whole UX area, which was really exciting. And and then I was like, well, what can we do? I want to kind of like, I don't know, fix all the problems that I had encountered in the first time around. And the opportunity with Paycom came up, and so I was really excited to come down here and kind of like work and bring UX to another company, building on, of course, what you and Alec have done.
So what really excited me about UX when I started learning about the field was, to me, it was the human element. And it was a direct application of all my liberal arts and ethnographic training in college. It's taking that ability to understand people and how they think and the way they need to see things laid out in order to accomplish tasks. It's taking that understanding and putting it into a very practical space of business. It's practical creativity, which is great for my brain. And it's also, I use, another one of my passions is yoga. I'm a yoga teacher and been teaching for several years. And it's a direct application of that mindfulness training that I've been immersed in since I was a teen, which is really like getting out of your own way of assumption and bias and engaging with what is. And then it's a toolbox of strategies for, putting form to what is. And then that, those insights, that data, those qualitative human stories, you take those back into the design process and make it into an interface. So I was just 100% convinced that this was a direct application of everything that I love and that I can do well. And that was a really big element for me, that confidence and that trust in my own like instinct and understanding of what UX is and why it's important to have businesses that are thinking about the humans they're serving. So that confidence was a big sail, that I hoisted, and then the tech skills were kind of the things I put in my pack along the way. So the transition into UX started with that like kind of inner like drive, and then my first corporate job was an SEO specialist. It wasn't quite UX though, so I moved to Austin and I did the 3-month boot camp with General Assembly, which Tori is very familiar with. And then came back here, partly because family and life was up here, but also because the market in Austin is just boom. It's really full. And I thought I would have more opportunity in Oklahoma City, and that proved to be true. The business culture here is really starting to clue in and mature and make space for user experience in their processes. So it took another year of freelancing, networking, coming to events like this, meeting other people in the tech space, and then doing like small projects with them to build up a portfolio. And I did a lot of free work and underpaid work in that time. But that job, or that work, got me my first job as a UX designer at Paycom. I was the first UX designer there. And now it's a team of a lot. Okay.
We have big influence.
Yes, of course, good. And then I was quickly joined by some really wonderful peers, and we worked really well together. And I love that about design as well. It's a very collaborative process that draws the smarts out of everyone involved. So that's how I made my transition.
So I think to recap both of those, so one, Grant went to South by Southwest, was inspired. So if you guys, there are local conferences down. There's stuff going on in Wichita and tons down in Dallas, and maybe one day one in Oklahoma. And so go, get inspired, meet other people. Coming to meetups like this, you're learning something, whether you feel like it or not. You're learning and you're networking. Gaia did a boot camp. I did the same boot camp, just in a different city. They have part-time classes. There are online courses. So those are the tangible items and takeaways and how you can transition. So was there a singular experience when you knew you wanted to transition into UX?
I guess I gave it away a little bit, which was just looking into graduate programs. I was very hesitant about going to graduate school, but I didn't know how to transition out of the space I was in. So I was looking into graduate programs, and I just couldn't find what I wanted fast enough. I couldn't find how you applied. I couldn't find the tuition rates. I couldn't find like online options. Like it was just bad. And so I started looking for, well, who are the people who fix these problems? And that's pretty much how I stumbled into UX. I had a friend who'd gone to college for information architecture, and that's where I started, which kind of opened the door to all the different disciplines that weave together into UX.
I guess I gave mine away a little bit too. It's just getting to hear from Alan Cooper in that one particular talk. I don't really remember much else about South by Southwest 2012, but it was good. And then, of course, the boot camp afterwards. But then another thing to add on to what you were saying earlier, Tori, is just there's lots of books and there's lots of podcasts out there too. There is way more available today than when, I mean, I think any of us were really kind of like starting to figure out what UX was and things like that. It just relates to so many different disciplines. So that's really exciting.
Great. So I know we've touched on this a little bit. Sorry, Kenzy. This is the last one, I think, just for you two. What previous skills from your background were transferable? I know Gaia mentioned this a little bit, but in a sentence or two, can you describe those?
I see design as problem solving. So whether you're in visual design, whether you're in UX design, industrial design, information architecture, anything like that, we are paid to be problem solvers, right? So that is a huge skill that I continually am trying to grow. And I hope all of you are too, because that is something that as designers in general, that's like our superpower, is that we solve problems in a different way.
So a lot of what I've done before has come together in this field. All the science classes I took in college taught me how to structure an hypothesis and set up a path to discovering whether that hypothesis was true or not. So understanding how to eliminate bias and how to look at information and see your own bias was a big piece of it, and still is a big piece of it. Again, that mindfulness training of just, okay, that's the thought in my head. It might not be the thought in that person's head. How can I ask a question in a way that invites their experience without inserting my experience? And then the ethnographic training really comes into play with that too, just talking to people in a way that keeps the door open for new information and allows me to find trends, that are meaningful there. And then business, running a business, understanding marketing, understanding that for sure you need to make a profit, otherwise you don't buy groceries. Like that, I see a lot of designers who struggle against the idealism of design and the practicality of business and the need to turn a profit. So being able to relate to that interest, that need on the business's part, and being able to, pry out, what do you really think is the path here, and how can we kind of construct a path together to a common goal? Those have all been really important. And so just stress again, understanding business is important for design.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is that each of you have found specific items that you tell in your story. And I think of this like relating whether you're networking or whether you're applying for a job and interviewing, you have something, whether it's project management, science skills, and you can write outlines and develop hypotheses. Whether you can interview people. If you're a recruiter, you can transition because you have that those personable skills. Pick something and bring that to your story as a UX designer. No UX designer is the same, and many come from different backgrounds. So make that into your story. Okay, kind of shifting away from the beginning portion. When you guys were first starting out, and Kenzy, jump into it because you see everybody. So from a second person, when we were first starting out, what helped you, or what helped other, entry-level designers?
I think so. A hiring manager is looking for one of two things: either that relevant professional experience or just a rock star portfolio when it comes to UX. I would, when it comes to transitioning, if you don't have that professional experience that a lot of people I talk to don't yet, I would really advise someone to focus on bulking up a portfolio. And if you don't get the chance to do that on a day-to-day basis at your 9-to-5 job, that's okay. Take some time to just do small projects. Like Gaia touched on this a little bit earlier, but just doing whatever small projects you can get your hands on, whether if that's freelancing or like a passion project, doing some work with a nonprofit that you might not get paid for, but it'll give you that experience that you need to showcase on your portfolio, to where you can be like, hey, I don't necessarily do this in a professional setting on a day-to-day basis, but I'm passionate and I'm putting in the effort to showcase these really cool products in a portfolio. So that's advice that I have. And she touched on this point too, but just getting out and talking to people, going to user groups just like this, and not being afraid to show people the work that you're working on. I feel like in Oklahoma City, specifically, organizations are starting to put design more at the forefront of their companies. So if we're coming together as a community and working together to help each other better, it's just going to make it better all around. So that's my advice.
Starting out, I mentioned the books. There weren't a lot of podcasts at the time. There are now. Designing for the Digital Age is the one that I recommend to everybody. That lays out UX design process start to finish. I mean, it incorporates elements of ethnography. It incorporates elements of visual design. It tells kind of how all these different parts weave together to form a solid UX strategy. That book really helped me quite a bit.
I think one of the best things I did in making my career change was doing the work. Design is a set of processes that you can apply to find answers and create solutions. And inherently, you don't know the answer before you start. So if you don't know how to do a competitive analysis or how to build a low fidelity prototype, then go read a bunch of blogs and try it out, because there's a good chance that a lot of people around you don't know exactly how to do it either. And maybe you'll come up with something that's even a little better. And also, design is collaborative. So you come up with something, someone else comes up with something, you get together and you talk about it, and then you make something better together. So practice, just try things out, make reports, make designs, and then practice talking to other people and applying that process of creating together. Because that's what companies need the most, is someone who's going to help all the ideas and opinions and information go in one direction, right? So practice that. And, in that, I said, get together and talk. The community of designers is important, because it can also be really frustrating to be a designer in a company that's profit-driven, and you need to fill that well, and hear what other people have tried, and remember that it's a journey for everyone. And then, the podcasts too have been really helpful. I like the Envision podcast.
Yeah. So what I would tack onto that is, one thing what I'm hearing is, one, just get started, but that's kind of an annoying thing to say. But just get started. And what I would say is be hungry. So they're all saying a bunch of things. Do a passion project, read books, listen to podcasts. So start with one. If you like to read, ask us, ask the Slack channel, ask someone, give me one book. Don't give me 5. Now I'm not going to read any. Too many choices. What's one podcast? What is one passion project? Should I focus, if I like graphic design, maybe I should focus on a mobile app and try and break into UI. So pick one thing and get started.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I don't have an online portfolio website.
Ooh.
I have artifacts that I've created for different projects that I share through a Google Drive, and I've gotten both of my jobs with just that. It's very detailed and robust, But, yeah, anyway, I did the work, and I wasn't afraid, and that's what companies want to see.
That's really cool.
Well, you've inspired me to add one more, and it would be just trying to get curious about things, like things that you're interested in, specifically the kinds of things you want to work on. So dig deeper, like keep asking questions to get to the heart of why a particular product, say, is the way it is, a particular website is the way it is, and what other ways could it be built? Why was it built this way and not another way? Is anybody else building a different way? Anyway.
Okay. This next question, it might be similar, so if you guys have a quick answer, that'd be great, but what's your advice for breaking into UX?
I think I answered that in my previous answer.
One
I
thing.
was really just going to say portfolio and
Love it.
Those are good things. Breaking into UX, I mean, there are, Gaia has alluded to this already. I hope I'm not stealing anything, but the world of UX is so vast and broad that it may help to educate yourself a little bit on like what parts of it interest you. For instance, there's information architecture, all about organizing things and making sure everything is in its spot. So if you're the type of person who has little pink cutouts for every tool in the shed up on your, maybe that's for you. And it is really fascinating. There's some really cool things to explore there. But maybe that's not. Maybe it's more the ethnography, which is really fascinating to me. But it's finding out kind of what area of UX you maybe want to start in and try doing that.
I'll emphasize just trust yourself. Just practice, do the work, and trust that it's okay, and it's okay if it's bad, and it's okay to get good feedback and bad feedback. Just trust yourself. If you have that instinct of like, I'm going to be good at this, then go with that. And you're really just, it's like learning a sport or any other skill. You fall down a little bit and then you get back up and you try again. But that self-trust needs to be there to get over those hurdles.
And you guys, what's fun? Design Twitter. So look up a blog post, just Google, top 20 or top 10 designers to follow on Twitter. It's hilarious. We talk about every developer or every designer should be a developer. There's a debate. And what's the 10x designer? That's been the most recent thing on Design Twitter. So you get to hear what is going on, not just around the nation, but around the world in Design Twitter. And it's really funny and fun to listen to. So basically, you'll be able to keep a pulse on what's going on. So follow a bunch of designers on Design Twitter will be helpful. All right, so for both of you, and then also Kenzy, and what you see in entry-level designers, how do they navigate their career search for that first job? Anyone can start.
For me, the networking was really important, going to meetups and following up with coffee dates and questions about like their work, and asking for recommendations, and then like asking for that introduction to the next person for your coffee date. That was really important. I actually didn't get my first job that way, but it gave me the confidence to know that I deserved that job because I had a really good understanding of the landscape of UX and what was happening, what companies were doing, who the players were, and what their backgrounds were. So when I went into that interview, I knew, yeah, I can do this job. I've talked to all the other UX people here, and I'm as good as them, So that was really important.
On breaking into a UX-specific job, I would say, my own experience may not be helpful, but maybe it is. Like, where it was just me and some friends, one of whom happened to be a manager level, and the other one, and we just kind of kept talking about it and bringing it up in design meetings and read a lot of books and practiced, tried to put these into play, tried to influence design, basing it off of customer and user needs rather than just our own intuition. And gradually, it just kind of turned things, got things going a little bit. And the other thing I would say too is leverage people like Kenzy, because seriously, there weren't, I think, correct me where I'm wrong, but tech recruiting seems to have come a long way since I got my first graphic design job, and I had no idea that people like this existed. But seriously, you can, I never applied for Paycom, actually. It was recruiters who were just watching for you, and go and say hi. I mean, it's okay. You can accept that LinkedIn invitation. And I know it's scary. I know.
That LinkedIn in-mail.
But seriously, these people are here to help you and further your careers.
Yeah. Thank you, Grant. I would just, to go off of that, I mean, literally, your guys' job every day is to be a creative, to be a designer, but what I do every day is literally I have my head in the market, understanding what's out there, how I can help. I'm here to partner with you guys to hear about your goals and your ambitions and how I can help with career advancement with some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I would agree with what they said, just being really present on LinkedIn, not being afraid to lean on someone like myself, just because you might not have to work with me after our first conversation, but I can definitely help guide you, give you advice, and just let you know what I'm seeing that might make sense for you in your career. So.
One thing I would add, so I've been a UX instructor for a few years, and I've also had career coaching, which was incredibly helpful. And, concretely, I would say if you're entry level, look for those jobs that require 1 to 3 years of experience. Apply for those. You can leverage your current work experience, whether, again, project management, whatever field you've been in, you can work and tell that story. You have that career experience. So if it says 1 to 3 years, just apply, be confident. They'll figure out if they need you or not, or if they can mold you. But just apply. Let them say no to you. So do you guys have any, maybe 2 or 3 course suggestions? Not just UX, but anything that would help build. I know before I went to a boot camp, I took a Don Norman online course that was free. He is famous for writing the Book of Everyday Things. The Design of Everyday Things. Thank you, team. Recently updated, and it just really expands your mind into how you think of, how things are designed. My fiance will go and say, "Oh, that's horrible design," and he's not in this world at all, and so it's so cute when he's like, "That's bad design." So I took a free course, and so that's where I started, just to kind of learn what is user experience. So 2 or 3 recommendations, anybody?
Yeah, I mean, like you both had mentioned, General Assembly is great. I also have worked with a few designers that have done it's called Block. They have apprenticeships specifically for UX. It's an online learning platform, like a boot camp. Obviously here locally, not specific to design, but if you wanted to focus on front-end technologies, there's Free Code Camp in Tulsa. They have Coding Dojo. So if you wanted to kind of beef up your skills there, those are options as well.
Convince your company to send you to one of Cooper's classes. I mean, they don't have the same UX boot camp that I do, but they do have several certification courses now. If you're looking to go back to school, go to University of Washington with this guy, talk to him. That's a great school. Carnegie Mellon is another really, really expensive, good school. And
human computer?
I'd love to try that sometime. But Cooper.
I also enjoyed the General Assembly experience. And I think I looked at a lot of different options there, and I think a lot of them are good. They are kind of like a fire hose, so you're not going to come out an expert. I think the most important thing to leverage in those programs is the interaction with other people and the conversations and the networking, because it just gives you perspective on your own work, really. So whatever classes you take, engage, and don't just like think you're gonna go and make something and then deliver it and there you go. Like, talk to the other students, seek out those mentors and teachers and ask lots of questions. And then, find a mentor, find someone. If you have to pay them, it's probably going to be worth it. Find someone to kind of help you stay on track mentally, that I can do this. I think that can be really helpful.
Cool. Okay, a couple more questions, but since we have about 10 more minutes before I open it up, I'll be a little brief. Next question. So for each of you, what's one of the tough questions that you've gotten in an interview?
The questions that tend to be tough for me are the questions of like, the business is like, we have this problem, what would you do? Because you have to like apply really quickly. And I think the thing to remember in the face of that question, like, should we build an Android app? Like, I don't know. Like, seriously, what? The thing to remember is that they're looking for your application of how would you find the answer to that question? What questions would you ask? What things would you do to figure out if we need to build an Android app, right? So don't get distracted by trying to deliver a solution. Stay centered on, I'm a designer and I approach problems in this way.
Very wise, absolutely. So there's a lot of tough questions out there, but you might want to think about the tough questions you're going to ask. This may be dubious advice. That's why I'm going before Kenzy, but I think you need to ask hard questions of potential organizations that are going to hire you. What kind of support do they have for growing designers? What kind of where is the design located within the organization? What kind of upper levels, executive level support do they have? These are really important questions that you're going to want to know. And don't forget, don't be ashamed to ask these things. Like, they're looking for the best person, and the best person is probably going to be somebody who's thinking through, oh, we never thought of why that might be important. Maybe we should look at this. And this person seems to really have it all together if they're asking about it. So I think it reflects well on you as well.
That's good advice. I would say the questions that I've seen that are a little difficult. How would you sell the importance of UX design to someone who's not a UX designer? Just because a lot of people don't understand what it is that you do and the importance behind it. And then just where do you start and what is your process end to end from a UX perspective?
And to tag onto that last question, they mean show me. Typically, they mean show me. So whether Gaia needs to pull up her Google Drive in front of you or hop on a call and screen share, or you send them your link, it is a show me business. So what's your process? Well, let me pull up my website and show you and talk through that. Okay, so this next one is for Kenzy. What do you look for in terms of entry-level roles? And I know we touched on this a little bit, but do you have maybe 3 crisp things that you look for?
Yeah, we touched on having ambition in that hunger. I would also add someone who has problem-solving skills, empathy for users, someone who can be that advocate for the user, someone who is a great communicator, because you're going to have to be that person transitioning between the business and the development team. So those are a few things I would suggest.
That's one thing I touch on. Being an instructor, I've read a lot of portfolios, I've read a lot of case studies and given feedback on them. And the biggest one, and whether you talk about your user or not, and hopefully you mention them by name or what they do, and it's not just user. Sometimes they're just a user, but try and personify them. So when you're going through your case study, or whether you're explaining this during an interview, don't forget to mention that person. You're not just building this product, and from start to finish, keep that user in mind. Okay. And this can be for anybody and what your perspective might be coming from, but what is your company looking for from a candidate's portfolio? And or what do you show? Like, what do you like to highlight for the designers?
Yeah, so basically you want to present that, or present proof that you can create and deliver a result. So I know we touched on this, but like showcasing at least one full project that started from nothing, the complete end-to-end process through the research, the personas, the wireframing, prototypes, all the way to the end product. I think the biggest gap that I see on portfolios is people just take a screenshot of like the end website that they created, and that's awesome. It's beautiful, but what I found hiring managers really want to see is the process you took to get there. So that's the biggest thing.
I'm not a hiring manager, but for applying for jobs, there's a lot of talk out in various design Slack networks and things like that, all about exactly what you're saying, show the process that you go through. And for me, too, that was really important because I wanted to make sure that whatever company understood that this is a process and it's not like, hey, today we're going to throw a wireframe together because that's UX. You know, I wanted to make sure that there was some understanding there of user experience design.
Yeah, I echo that. Like, showing your process should be kind of what your portfolio is centered around, that you understand the design process, you understand the purpose of each of the steps, and you know how to make something of those steps, whether it's an artifact or an insight or, you know, a wireframe. And I would also say, it's not really from the company's perspective, but from the applicant's perspective, make that portfolio reflect you. The Google Drive works for me because I have a bunch of reports, and so I have a story kind of laid out. This is how we approached this problem and all the things we did, and then here's what we made along the way that links out to different documents in that folder. And that's the way I work. I'm a deep thinker, and I operate kind of on that level. And so if that's not your style, then make a portfolio that reflects your style, you know.
Now, tag on to the portfolio piece. Make sure that you're showing your work. You're talking about your work. If you say, well, we went and did user interviews and it was great, and we went and then did a survey, and then we all did the low-fi fidelity prototype, I don't know what you did. Like, again, I speak as from an instructor and a mentor's perspective. But same thing, like a hiring manager or recruiter, they do want to understand what you contributed to the project. I would say probably 90% of my portfolio is like lo-fi work. I don't show what my UI designer would do. It's a rarity that I would put that on there because that's not what I did. Like, there's so much more that I did beyond that, and yeah, it kind of looks crazy, but for a job I'm applying for, they know what they're looking for, and it's not, for me, it's not a UI designer. So I don't want to sell myself as that. So sell what you're good at. If you want to focus on research, beef up your research in your case study, for example. Okay, all right, so just a final question, and maybe in just one sentence, what excites you guys about this field?
I had it yesterday.
Or thinking.
But it changed, you know, it's... I love the conversations that user experience designers bring to a company, the way that they frame problems and turn the focus back to the people that company is meant to be serving.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I would say, as a UX designer, you have the opportunity to make real change in people's life. You are touching something that they need as part of their life, something that's going to help them be more efficient, and you have the opportunity to play a role in helping make a whole lot of people really happy.
I think the amount of opportunity excites me the most. Just here in the central region alone, we have over 120 opportunities that are looking for design talent, and there's more on the way. So the people sitting in this room are highly sought after, and it's just going to keep growing. There's so much opportunity. Nationwide, there's going to be over 1 million jobs that go unfilled within tech and the creative industry this year. So crazy amounts of opportunity, and I think that's what excites me the most.
I 100% agree with Kenzy. So everything you guys said is like nice and fluffy, and like, yes, we solve problems, we help and solve the world, make products better, but really upward mobility. Yeah. So I'll open it up on that note. We took a few questions from people already and incorporated them into the slides, but does anyone have, I'll take maybe 2 or 3 questions depending on our time, if you'd like. Yeah. And Kenzy, can you repeat that question for the microphone?
Okay, I'm not good at repeating. He asked the 1 million jobs that are going to be going unfilled over this next year. Is that a supply and demand problem or a?
Yeah. So demand is
Yeah.
jobs, the supply is
Yeah, it 100% is. There are just more jobs than there are people available with the skills necessary to fill the jobs. So, yes.
Seth?
What's your favorite tool to use for doing the UX flow?
Oh, specific.
I love, if you're talking about tools, like software tools, I love Optimal Workshop. They have a fantastic suite of tools. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Wait, and follow up. So what do you do with Optimal? Do you do card sorting? Like, is there whiteboarding?
Yeah, card sort. They have a card sorting tool. They have a tree testing tool. They have Reframer, which is qualitative interviews. Those are the 3 I use the most. They also have a survey tool that started out really kind of weak, but they are continuing to improve that, and it's a lot better. And they also have one that we can't use, but it's like a chalk mark where you put up like a design you're working on and ask people to click on different things, like that probably could heat mapping,
Cool.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But not live heat mapping. Sorry.
I like Optimal Workshop as well. I think that's a really good tool. If you can get like a free trial, then get in there and play around with it. And then as far as making visuals, I've adopted Sketch and stuck to it. There's so many options, and you don't have to know everything. Just pick something and get good at that tool. You know, the Adobe suite can be really overwhelming. So if you're coming in to design, then I would start with Sketch.
Cool, thank you. Any final question? So the question is, how do you structure your resume if you have a portfolio but you don't have any obvious work experience in UX?
I would definitely focus on specific projects that you've done. Because you don't have the professional experience to kind of list and explain on a resume. In your boot camp, I'm sure you worked on specific projects, so I would just kind of highlight those and just make it more of like a project-based resume. I've definitely seen success when people do it that way.
Cool. Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kenzy, Grant, and Gaia for coming up here and letting us ask all these questions.